Hey guys, today we are going to be looking at all of the books that I read in the month of February in 2025 and what I thought of each of these books and if I would recommend you picking them up. Let's get into it. We will be going in the order of my most recently read to the first book I read in the month. The book that I most recently finished is Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. This is Boys Atonement #1 and it was the highest rated romance book on my TBR according to Goodreads, and I ended up giving it a 2-star. This was actually the first book that I've written a review of and got people commenting telling me like I took it too personally and that it's just a book. In my opinion, nothing is just a book. This is art, and art is made to be analyzed, and everybody's gonna have a different opinion. Because if you gave this book a 5-star, I am extremely happy for you because 5-star books are so hard to come by, and I'm just so happy that you found a book that you love. I mean, that's what this channel's for, to help people find books that they love. Sometimes there's gonna be books that you don't really care for. I didn't hate this book, but it just wasn't for me. I do think that it's all subjective and books and art are made to be taken personally. I told the person in the comments all this and I was like, I'm glad that you love this book and you're subject to have your opinion. I'm subject to have my opinion. You shouldn't belittle me because I have a different opinion than you. And I just wanted to put that message out there for people on social media, reading books, reviewing books, that you're not going to agree with everybody, and that's a-okay, because think of all the millions of books that are out there. You're not going to like every single one of those books. Could love all those books, I don't know, but I highly doubt it. But I did want to put that out there. But let's go into why this book didn't do a whole lot for me. The characters, I gave a 2-star. We have Johnny, who is our male main character, and he's probably my least favorite male main character I've read, at least in recent history. These are teenagers, and that's something I have to remind myself, that these are literally children, and I am a grown woman. I'm 25, so my mind is apparently fully developed, as they say with science. The choices I make and think characters should make are ultimately gonna be different than what a 17-year-old boy is going to do. But he has a hero complex, and he sees himself being very protective of Shannon. He's very possessive of Shannon. That's our female main character. And for me personally, I just don't like that. Now, I know that's a really common trope that's like, touch her and I'll kill you. This is not for me because I am really like a free spirit. I like to do my own thing. I don't need somebody like dictating my life, and I just don't find that romantic at all. And this is a romance book, so you know it's supposed to be romantic. I personally find it really toxic and borderline abusive, because the way he would question her brother, and he was like questioning the brother about all this stuff, and I'm like, Joey's the brother. I'm like, it is not Joey's place to tell you about Shannon's life. Like, you need to go to Shannon. And like, he was like, Shannon will lie to me. And if honestly, if you're really concerned, you need to go to a teacher, parent, somebody you trust that is an adult. Obviously, again, they are kids. They probably don't realize that you can do all of that. I don't know. I just found him really toxic. And then we have Shannon, who is our female main character. She literally says at one point in the book, I'm not like most girls. She is one of the most I'm not like other girls characters I've ever read. She's like, I don't have a celebrity crush. I don't have any crushes. I'm not into models, but I do like dogs. And like, okay, cool, you like dogs, but you don't like pop culture or anything else. You don't wear makeup. You don't really care about your appearance. So you're so much better than other girls. You don't gossip, even though you're a 15-year-old girl and everybody else is gossiping around you. Yeah, I couldn't stand that. I couldn't stand that. Atmosphere, I do think if you like the atmosphere of Normal People by Sally Rooney, then you would like this, which I loved Normal People and didn't love this one, but it's Ireland, like teenagers. This is taking place in 2005 though, but I don't think that really played a huge part because again, Shannon's not big into pop culture, and I think to really get that nostalgia factor for books is to play with like pop culture and things that were happening at the time. Writing, this is like a very short blunt style, but it's dual. I like short blunt where it's descriptive, but this is very dual. It's like we did this, then we did that. And I just find that kind of boring, and honestly it got repetitive because this is 600 pages. This is the definition of a slow burn romance. No, I must not read that many slow burn romances because this just dragged so long and got tiresome to read about the same thing. We're reading about what Shannon's going through at home and that she just hates this situation, and then Johnny with his life with rugby, and I just got bored of reading all of that. But I'll list the tropes here. So this big guy, small girl, it has to say so many times how small Shannon is. And then the like touch her and you'll die, forbidden romance. Those are the tropes. And again, it was just so slow. And this is a series, so you're not really getting any conclusion at the end of the book, and it was just like, was this really worth it? But the audiobook was free, but I'm going to be unhauling this, and since it is so popular, I know somebody else might love this book. Now we have a mood read that I read, and that is People Like Her by Ellery Lloyd. This is about like a mom influencer. They might have a stalker, but we have, and I also gave this a 2-star as well. Our characters, we have the mom influencer, like, see, I'm totally blanking on Emmy. Emmy is the mom. She was just very like superficial. There was a lot of telling, not showing us, I think. So I don't know if it was intentional, but I can never really connect with her. Then we had Dan, who is her husband, and I did like it in that perspective. We have an influencer, and then we have the husband, who you're seeing the life of an influencer from an outsider perspective, but a close outsider. I did find that intriguing, but he just like kind of snapped towards the end of the book, and his character arc just did not make sense to me, and I really got angry with him when I was reviewing this book. And then we have our stalker character. Again, not a whole lot of resolution, but I like the idea of the characters, but I just don't like how it played out. Atmosphere, this is very English, but this is a thriller, and I never really felt thrilled. I was bored. There was, again, a lot of telling us things but not showing us things, and I think if we saw those things it would have made the story more thrilling. The writing, this is a writer duo, so I'm assuming it's like a married couple writing it, so I'm assuming the man wrote the man and the woman wrote the woman, and maybe they alternated who did the stalker, I don't know. But you can definitely like this, what I'm about to tell you, has nothing to do with it being a writer duo, because sometimes it felt like you were being told the story, like you were watching a documentary or something and hearing about these people's experiences, and other times it felt like just reading any old book and it would be at the same perspective, so assuming the same writer. It just felt really disjointed and it didn't flow very well. But with the plot, I do think this does have important themes that we do need to be careful what we're putting out there on the internet in this day of social media, that you just really need to be careful and aware of what you're doing. Also, influencers need to be aware of the power that they have, the influence that they have over people, and really need to make sure what they're putting out there is safe and is worthwhile for people and can actually be beneficial for others. Now, y'all know I like to add a graphic novel to my TBR every month because I realized back earlier in the 2020s I was kind of neglecting reading graphic novels, but this month is a children's book. But I think if you are a lover of history, science, geology, then you could really enjoy this book. I personally love history, obviously with history and with life. What is around you with geology and science is extremely important as well. So if you want to know like why I love history so much, read Old Rock Is Not Boring by Deb Paludi. And I think if you have kids and are wanting to bring history, tell them about science and everything, this would be a great place to start. I talk about in my vlog that this can work for anybody. If you're a Christian, if you are an atheist or whatever, I think that this really can work for any, place on the spectrum, because I know like some Christians don't really want to mess with science, but this is told in a way where I think it's accessible to any audience. I just think it's so fantastic to show how the world around us impacts who we are and impacts the animals and plants and everything around us. It's so inspiring. Another thing that I didn't expect is a theme here is we shouldn't compare our story to other people's stories. All our stories are important and are not boring. They all have an impact on the world and history, the butterfly effect, if you will. And I just think this is such a great story, and I would definitely recommend reading this to your kids, or your teacher having this in your classroom. We even have a part at the end with like a timeline of, how everything came and like the different, you know, eras, like the dinosaurs and all of that. And I just think this is a great little book for adults and kids alike. My book club pick was Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. I gave this a 4-star. I did love this. This is the best romance I've read in a little while. We only get our character Winifred's perspective. We do not get Beau's perspective. Usually I get kind of scared when we're only getting one perspective of the relationship, but with this, it was done in such a great way because they are like acquaintances when they get together and get thrown into the situation of, you know, having a baby together when they're not a couple, but they have to get to know each other along the way. So therefore you're getting to know the characters along the way. So as Winifred gets to know Beau, we get to know Beau. I thought that was such a cool way to tell the story and to connect with the characters, because I did feel really connected with Beau even if we didn't get his perspective. The atmosphere, this is taking place in Canada, and in the author's note it does make mention of how some things are different in Canada than they are in the States right now, and I thought that was really intriguing. Like, I have never seen that and really thought about that when reading books, and I thought it was cool that the author put that in the author's note. The writing, I did get, again, kind of tedious at times with just the inner turmoil going on. I'm like, oh my gosh, just don't, like, I don't want to read that. It makes complete sense why our character has all these anxieties and everything, because I mean, her life is doing like a 360 or whatever. It's going crazy, and it makes total sense for this character to have anxiety, but it got tedious to read about on page over and over again. And once we got to the epilogue was just so long, and I was like, I don't care at this point. And just the way it was formatted with the epilogue and all was kind of weird. And then with the pacing, I do think this is told at like such an organic pace. We're going through, like, I don't know, let's say 10 months of these characters' lives, but it never felt slow and it never felt too rapid. The pace just flowed very organically, and I can really appreciate that, because as I said, some of those chapters did get tedious to read about. You know, I never ultimately felt bogged down with the story. And with the plot, this is such a unique romance plot. This is unlike any other romance book I've ever read before, as we do have the unexpected pregnancy trope, but right off the bat, you know, it's not going to come up with like 25% of the book to go. It just really shows that it does take a village to raise a child, and found family is really big in here as well. I did like that we got to see like we got to have friendship and all involved, and it wasn't just focused on the romance. That was something with Binding 13. We would just be so focused on the romance. I'd be like, what about the other people? What are they up to? How are they doing? But with this, it was done very well. Very likable characters, good chemistry, and I would highly recommend Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. Now, a short, sweet poetry collection, and that is Cat Poems. This was put together by New Directions, the Glee Club. No, I'm joking about the Glee Club, but it literally is called New Directions. This was cute, a bit pretentious for my opinion, because there were a lot of words where I was like, what does this mean? I don't know if it was translation errors, because you're having poems from all over the world about cats put in here. And I've talked about before, I prefer narrative poetry that is telling one story rather than just, you know, all these are about cats. But yeah, it was cute. Pretentious. I don't really know if I'd recommend it, but I think this is a cute little book to have if you like cats. Now we have my 5-star prediction of the month. I ended up giving it a 4-star, so I did love this book, and that is The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. The character in here, I really did enjoy following this character, because she took a member of the Medici family who's one of those lesser known members of history, and really like amplified her story and showed what that girl's life, Lucrezia, what her life could have been like. I did really like that, but the atmosphere is what blew me away. It just inspired me so much to, you know, get out the pen and paper and write. I loved it. This is taking place in Renaissance Italy, which is such a vivid time period, because that's when art was really, you know, going on. Botticelli, everybody was painting away and making sculptures. As I told y'all, books are a piece of art, and this is a piece of art. But one thing is, I do think it was overly researched. It very well researched, but there would just be terms and everything that are Italian or Latin terms, and I'd be like, I don't know what that means. And so I do wish that there had been a glossary in tow here. Then with the writing, very flowery writing, where I was just like, can we please get to the point? Like, I'd read one paragraph and I'm like, cool, I understand what we're talking about. But then it would go on for like another 2 paragraphs saying the same point. And I'm like, I don't need all that extra. 1 paragraph would have been good and I would have understood what the author was trying to get across. And then the plot. This is a plot that you're going to see a lot in historical fiction about women. They're being put into in arranged marriages and just having to uncover those dynamics and everything. Try to fall in love with their husband. The husband might be an awful guy. He might be an old, ugly man and all of that. So that is something you see a lot in historical fiction. But I think this really went into the autonomy of it and what it means to be a woman and how things might, like, because, you know, arranged marriages aren't really, in the West anyway, they aren't extremely prevalent anymore. So it's like, how could I relate to that? I'm not being forced into a marriage or anything. But it's just the autonomy that a woman has. Like, I mean, back, you know, in the 60s, like, a woman couldn't get a credit card without a man's permission. So, I mean, things like that are always changing, and things with, like, bodies and all of that, body autonomy. It's not even just that, but, you know, you can definitely relate modern things that are happening to what was happening in this book that took place like 500 years ago. And I think that's so cool with historical fiction when you can see we're human. Humans have been the way we are for like 100,000 years, have had the mental capacity. It's so fascinating to see that somebody that long ago could be in very similar shoes that you are in now, but just tweak the situations a little bit, and I just think that is so impactful. The first book that I finished this month was a carryover from January, and that is my nonfiction pick, which was Disillusioned, 5 Families and the Unraveling of America's Suburbs by Benjamin Harrold. I do think this title is a bit misleading, as this is really just showing how COVID messed up schooling for kids and the impact that COVID had on the public school system in the United States, which I do think is a very important and prevalent topic. Again, I just think this book was mismarketed by saying it's about the suburbs and how they're falling apart, but this is so interesting to see the history behind why suburbs are the way that they are, and we're seeing from all over the United States. I do wish we could have seen more rural states, like rural areas, which is like, how can it be a suburb in a rural area? Well, I'm in a town with 30,000 people or 40,000 people, and there are suburbs, and we are in a state that's very low ranking in education. I would have liked to see like those states like the South Carolina, or we do have Georgia in here, but Mississippi, you know, Louisiana. I think that would have been kind of interesting to see, rather than these states that are pretty high up on the list of education in the United States. But there's a lot of talk on the economy and the politics that all goes into it. And yes, I do think that's an important cornerstone to have for this book. But I was more invested on these families. And we have all different kinds of families, right, left, Latino, black, white. Like, you have, you know, all those different kinds of families, and like single mother families, families with like 3 kids. So there's a lot of diversity in this book, and I do think that's important because everybody's experience in the United States is going to be different. But I do wish it just narrowed in and focused on the families more, because I was really invested in those stories rather than, you know, the politics and economics and all of that. But again, I do think it is important to know that, because that is like, you know, background on why these family situations might be the way that they are. But I would still recommend this. I think this is really beneficial, and you will learn a lot, especially if you weren't in school during COVID, because I personally wasn't, seeing that the impact that that might have had on kids and families across the United States. Those are all of the books that I read in February. What was the best book you read in February? I think it was Out on a Limb for me. And what was your least favorite? Which mine is Binding 13. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you made it all the way through, leave a heart emoji in the comments below. And as always, comment, rate, and subscribe. And don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. I'll see you in my next one. Bye! If you are familiar with my videos, you're used to seeing Sherman at the end of them. Sadly, Sherman has since passed away, but I would still like to encourage you guys to help your local shelters. Sherman was at the Darlington County Humane Society in rural South Carolina. I always have their link down below in the description if you guys would like to help them, but also help your local shelters as well. You can do that by donating, sharing posts like this one, volunteering, fostering, and adopting. which it's great to do all of those things. Great to help your community, great to help the animals in your community, and I cannot recommend it enough. All of my pets were rescues, they were strays or from animal shelters, and I love them so much, and I know how much love they can give, so knowing these pets at the shelter can equally give that much love, it's amazing. And y'all should totally take part and help out those local animal shelter pets, and please help them.